Well, good evening again, everybody. It's nice to be with you. My name is Alan Friedman, Vice President of the Australian Jewish Association, and I am, as usual, your MC for this evening. Also visible, as you will have seen, David Adler, President of the AJA, and good evening to you as well as to our special guest for tonight, Uri Bar Lev, who we will introduce in a moment. The format tonight will be pretty much as before. We will be speaking with Uri for about 30 minutes, after which we will open up the discussion with a live Q&A session from the audience. So please have some questions ready for about 8:30. Now, the way to signal your interest in asking a question is to click on the participants button at the bottom of the screen, and then on the raise hand icon or the green tick along the bottom. The chat function is available for general comments as usual, so feel free to send messages to the audience during the discussion. And of course, everybody has been muted to prevent those annoying noises during the first part of the session, but we will unmute everybody, of course, when we get to question time. Michael?
Yes, welcome to our event, Uri. Would you like me to start off with the questions?
Yep. No, just do the intro.
Okay, then fine. Sorry about that. In 1970, former El Al pilot Uri Bar Lev foiled a mid-air hijack attempt aboard his flight from Amsterdam to New York. One of the attackers, Leila Khalad, who is still a committed member of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, is these days unrepentant and a celebrity speaker who was invited to speak via Zoom at the San Francisco State University just recently. Now, this event has been cancelled by Zoom after some pressure. This story resembles a movie script, but is real life. Shots were fired on board, seriously injuring an El Al flight attendant who nearly died, and the pins of 2 hand grenades were pulled. Action was needed and orders were received by the pilot to return to Israel immediately, but they were disobeyed.
Yes, and the pilot was our special guest for tonight, Uri Bar Lev. So to find out what happened directly from the man involved, we're delighted to have Uri with us tonight. Uri, shalom and welcome to Australia, even if it's via Zoom.
Shalom, shalom.
Uri, can you just take us through the events of that flight? You know, just before you got on board. Just can you summarise the events for us, please?
Yes, I think that my case is not how to say it. He belongs to a series of action which was done by the PLO or terrorists beforehand. So it doesn't live by itself. Now, after hijacking in 1968 an Al aeroplane, which I was supposed to fly to Tunisia, where one of the first officers were injured and the captain was injured, and they were free after 1 month in jail, and Israel released few of the terrorists which we had. After this, TWA was hijacked by Leila Khaled and another person, and actually without a pistol or any kind of ammunition, just by a knife. The door was open and the pilots flew for whatever she told, and then the airplane was blown up, but the airplane of TWA. So El Al at this time started to think how to prevent a hijacking, what to do. So all this establishment of air marshals started. I mean, it's 1969 only, and each city of which El Al was flying there had a security person who was in charge. And we started to learn, and this is not a joke, jiu-jitsu. in order to protect ourselves. Nobody thought actually that anything like this can happen. Because beforehand, about tens or maybe hundreds of airplanes was hijacked to Cuba, and only for money, and then the passenger released. So everybody thought that that's what will happen later on with the terrorists. So no one was actually ready to what it is. And no one knew actually or was thinking about hijacking. So this was, how can you teach it? So nobody taught us anything. Now I'm going back to 6th of September 1970. I have to take a flight from Amsterdam to New York. We are coming normally about 2 hours earlier to the airport to check, to do a job there as a crew member. Each one has his own jet that he has to check. In this process, a little bit, just when I was sitting already in the airplane, the manager of the security of El Al in Amsterdam came to me and says, Uri, I have a problem. I want to discuss with you something. Come out with me out. So actually, he was not, has to call me. I know nothing about security. I'm just a pilot. He should have called the center in Tel Aviv and tell him what is the problem, what to do. But he preferred to approach me from some reason. So he tells you that he has 4 suspicious persons on the airplane. Papa, Louis person. Now I have a black.
It's okay. Just continue.
Okay.
That will disappear.
Okay. So he says I have 4 suspicious persons. I ask him, why are they suspicious? He says first, the tickets was waiting for them. They didn't come with tickets. 2 of them was first class, diplomat, but in their passport, it was a, how to call it in English, a running number. For example, one was finished at 65 and the other one at 66.
Mm.
So although they were black, diplomat, first class, he didn't know what to do actually because they are paying a lot of money. And the other one was just normal, fair, a girl, a blonde girl, and a blonde person, but the tickets were waiting for them at the counter. So I told him the 2 people, the first class, you take off. He says, yes, but they're paying so much. I say, okay, you take them off. It was not under my authority, but I say, I don't allow you to put them on my airplane. The other one, I want you to do on them a very deep search, and you call a woman girl from the police to check the girl. But a deep, what I meant, a deep one. So after about half an hour, he comes, okay, we check them, everything is fine. I was not easy with his reply, but I didn't have any kind of a legal basic to say, okay, I don't want them on board. Because they were checked, everything is fine. Like Corona, you checked, you have the Corona, but you check, it doesn't have, so you are free, yes? So.
Uri, what was the problem? Why were you uneasy with that answer? Did you think that maybe they weren't doing a very good job of checking them?
I don't know. I had some kind of, sometimes you have, I don't know how you say it in English,
a feeling.
Stomach feeling.
Feeling.
I felt with all this uneasiness, but I knew what is my limit for the 2 running numbers. Diplomat, I had a reason. But the other one, no. And they were not black, they were fair, not Arabs. So I didn't have a reason, but I felt very uncomfortable with this. especially when one day beforehand, my air marshal, which was his first time flying as an air marshal on El Al, on the leg of flight from Tel Aviv to Amsterdam, later said, you know, we have a security problem here. Asked him, what's the problem? So if I sit alone in the first class, and it's only 2 rows there, it means it's 1, 2, only 4 seats, that's 7 or 7. And they know and they should make some kind of intelligence check before trying to hijack an aeroplane. One person sitting in one seat. At this time, his position was 2C. Number 2, seat C. And we used to call him 2C, because always at this time before computer, it was easy for El Al to know that this seat has to be free for the air marshal. The same was for the one who was at the back, let's say 28B. And that's how we called them. Before we knew them, 2C, 28B. So if I sit there alone, so they can from behind me shoot me in the hand, and that's the end. So this position is very unsafe. So I said, okay, you are right. When we come back to Tel Aviv, I will speak with security and we'll talk about this position. You are right. I told you this story because it has a point what happened later. So before, it then comes to me, never mind, this is not important. By the way, the 2 black people, the diplomat, in all this hijacking airplane, the 4 airplane which was hijacked this airplane to Cairo, and the airplane was blown up. And one passenger, they let the passengers going down with the slides for emergency. One was injured there during the slides. So these people had ammunition, and actually they have a one is, you know, you don't check people like this. They are, I don't know, constant, whatever it is. There's Samsonite. I don't know if you have seen Samsonite.
Yeah.
Today, out of metal, and inside there is some kind of, how do you call it? Wax refer. They have some kind of a plastic bomb.
Explosive.
Explosive, yeah. They have some kind of explosive, but nobody opened them. It's diplomat. But this is their problem. So this airplane, now, when we were texting, ahead of, then the station manager says, oh, he was happy. I found a place for these 2 diplomats with TWA. So TWA was texting ahead of me. I was on after him, then just to the runway. So when he was texting, suddenly he stopped and says, I was just told that I have 2 passengers which were disembarked from El Al, and I want to check these passengers. So he stopped and I stopped beyond him, let's say 2 minutes before the runway.
This is the pilot on the other aeroplane.
What?
Is this the pilot on the TWA plane?
Yes, yes.
So he's talking to you. He wants to ask you a question.
No, not to me. No. He talks to the, I didn't say it. He spoke to the tower.
Right.
Like he wants to stop, permission to stop because he wants to check these new passengers. So he stopped and I stopped. And then my uneasiness, I don't know why, they were speaking about passengers which I took off. What actually happened, he sent the first officer to check them, so he only did them on them body like this, here and here and here and here, and that's it. They found it's okay, and they flew, and they were hijacked. But I decided at this moment, I thought about what I spoke or what was the conversation with my air marshal, and I said, I saw beforehand that the first class is empty, and he was the only 1 passenger. I had a feeling that uneasiness. So I called him to come into the cockpit in order to be secured. He didn't want, he said, I have to sit always on the two seat. I'm not allowed to change my position. Says, okay, I'm the commander here. You go to the cockpit. I don't know what will happen. Maybe I'm wrong, but go to the cockpit. There you will be secured. And if you will need to open, you jump out and do whatever you can. And this was agreed with us. So we take off to New York at the height of 29,000 feet. At the cockpit, we get a ring and a flashing red light, meaning new system only a few months ago, only few, yeah, it was established only a few months before this. And that was a sign of
trouble.
What?
Trouble.
No, it's hijacking.
Oh. So this red flashing light was specifically to tell you that there was a hijack on board.
Of course, to be operated by one of the crew members around. It was all along the airplane. There was places where if you press, this is. But you remember the story about wolf. So when you have a wolf, you say, oh no. So at the beginning there was many problems. All the time we got red light, nothing, red light, nothing. So my flight engineer, when he see the lights, say, oh, say again. And I say, no, there's a hijacking. Why? I don't know. But again, from the very beginning, though I didn't have anything to say why, I didn't feel good. I said, no, this is a hijacking. About 2 or 3 minutes after this, the doors of the airplane somebody was actually knocking the door strongly, and the steward calls me and says, look, there is hijacking, there is one man with a pistol here, and there is a woman with 2 grenades in her hands. This was Leila Khaled. I asked, at this time, was a video like this. So, you know, each house has in the door some pinhole that you look through it. So that's what we had in the door. Very difficult to see. So the flight engineer goes there and tells me I can see a man standing with his hand with a pistol and then a woman, as I told you. And at this time, they said they want you to open the door unless they are going to release the air grenade and they are going to shoot. I didn't know that already there, one of the crew members was shot down by Agrelo. This is the name of the main hijacker who was actually from Nicaragua. His parents, but he was born in United States. So he has a United States passport. He was American, actually. So the steward, not the steward, one of the crew members actually jumped on him, had naked hands. You can say that he is very brave, or you could say he's very stupid. So he was shot 1 or 2. So then he jumped again. So he was shot another bullet, and he fell down. So I didn't know anything about this. I know now the position is what I see, and I think to myself, I have to save time, to think, what can I do? But one thing was true for me, that we are not going to be hijacked. At this time, I'm not going to mention the name of the person, but one of the crew members told me, you know, that according to IATA law, you have to take welfare of the passengers and you have to open the door, because otherwise we don't know what's going to be. So I called shoutly, hey, sit down, we are not going to be hijacked. From this moment, I saw only one thing, thinking very fast, what can I do? And then they called me, they say, the man is now putting his pistol to the head of the crew member, the person, and he said that if you don't open the door, is going to shoot him. Now, if everybody think about himself, you have to play God. I don't know what each one of you would have done in a position like this. Very difficult. But by instinct, I remember that when I was in the army, and I was a trainer, instructor for 3 years, for my 6 years in the army, I did a special, I learned to do how to do a special exercise with the aeroplane that put the aeroplane into a negative G. A negative G is a position where, like, you are in the elevator now, and the wires are cut, the elevator falls down, and for a few seconds, it's like
Weightless.
astronaut. You are in the air.
Weightless.
So you fell down. You lose your weight. So I thought at this time, this is the only thing which I can do. Negative G, and then they fell down. My marshal will jump from the cockpit. The passengers are strapped, like, because we were still climbing. We're 29, we should have climbed to 31,000. And I remember that this was not army airplane, not small one. This is 707. It's a huge airplane, yes, and we had 142 passengers and crew, 11 crew. But when I study in Seattle, from conversion from Britannia airplane before this to the 707, we got about 8 hours, and the company paid for hours, 8 hours. But I finished in 6. So then the instructor, which was actually ex-Korea pilot, asked me, what shall we do? Then I smiled to him and said, look, is this airplane can do aerobatic? I mean, the 707. Of course, it's very strong. He says, okay, let's do a split S. So I said, but okay, if you don't pass negative G of 1. So, okay. So he said, what speed? How do you do it? So, okay, you'll see. So I did with this airplane, empty, only me and him, as this exercise with a negative G. And so I was sure when all this, you know, now I'm spending a lot of time, but it's in my mind, okay, it could be done. So I tell the crew, we are going to do now negative G, be prepared. I tell the air marshal, hold up, set up and hold, you know, by your hand, because we are going to do negative G. They will fall down, you jump out. So I did the negative G. Agrelo, the name of the man, fell down. Leila Khaled fell down. The hand grenades was spraying on the floor. And we are now on a deep dive in order to equalize the pressure between the aeroplane and the inside, because when you fly, the pressure inside is like being in 4,000 feet, while outside may be 30,000 feet. So the air, if you have a hole in the aeroplane, the air will blow out, and if somebody is not strapped, it will be, hop, you will be, and it's happened. You will be going there. So if you equalize the pressure, it's fine. So 10,000 feet you equalize. Now, very fast, we are going toward 10,000 feet. I call the Tower of London, telling him there is a name of Mayday, Mayday in aviation. This means extreme position. Whoever see inquiry of, it's in, I don't know if you see it, never mind. Inquiry about accident of aeroplane. So always there is, when something happened, the captain is calling Mayday, Mayday. So I'm calling Mayday, Mayday. I'm being hijacked, please clear all the air for me. I mean, the airplane will go out so I can fly to other airplane, because each airplane has its own level that it can fly to. And if you go suddenly here, you can hit another airplane. So the controller has to know where all of them. And when somebody is doing a rapid descent as I did, we came to nearly the voice, the speed was the voice of sound in this exercise. And then the controller didn't know what to do. He actually lost, he didn't know what is hijacking, what is the rapid descent, how do I know all this? Because I have, after, again, 40 years of fighting with the Archive, the English one, they released the, how to call it, the typing, not voice, the typing of what happened.
Transcript.
So I have, he speaking, I'm speaking, others speaking, and everything took only you see, I speak for a long time, 2.5 minutes from the time that I decided to make this negative G. Now, by this time, the Marshal, after the negative G, or during he walked holding here to the front, and my Marshal jumped out of the cockpit, and the Air Marshal probably from behind shoot a Grelo, and my air Marshal gave him a knock here and broke his
neck.
He broke his neck. Leila Khaled was lying fainted on the floor. 2 hand grenade was out. They didn't explode. Later on, we found out, we checked them, that the head of them, they took off the head of them, so like no explosive inside. I don't know if she knew it or not, but she fainted. So I think that she thought that they are going to explode, and she was holding them. And she fainted. And in her book about this, she wrote down that 30 people were firing on her, 30. So she lay down, she didn't faint. She just lay down on the floor, and the crew member jumped on her. Now, all this I don't know. Yes, I'm telling you what I did know later on. And then I was told, maybe I missed something, never mind. We got to 10,000 feet. And then I get a voice on the radio from El Al by a man that I know, who says, they want you to come immediately back. He didn't designate who is him. He said, him, who is these people? And he says, no, but I have to think. Somebody told me that there is an injured cabin attendant. He says,
Uri,
no.
sorry, Uri, how long has this been going on for at this stage? How far out of Amsterdam were you?
2-3 minutes.
Oh, is that all? So this happened immediately after you took off?
No, what took off? After the, why took off? After the negative G.
Oh,
I descended to 10,000 feet. This is a safe altitude, even if something blows. All this part took 2.5 minutes from my decision, exercise, coming to 10,000 feet. Because I was actually there controlling the aeroplanes, because the controller didn't know what to do. Who heard about a story like this? So then I was called to come back. Do you hear me? Because it's a black again.
It's okay. It's okay. It's just somebody. There's just a little bit of noise. We mute people when they come in. Keep talking.
In the aeroplane, there is always an LL in a doctor. So we call for a doctor to check the cabin attendants, to see if I can now turn on and fly back to Tel Aviv. Now, nobody told me what's going on, but another 3 airplanes were actually hijacked, and 2 of them completely distracted. One of them distracted in Cairo. Nothing, just come back. So the call came a doctor, check him. I don't know, I'm still in the cockpit. I know nothing.
He
checked him, and he says, it's okay, we can go back. Again, why, I don't know. Dr. Bar Lev decided that it's not enough. So I went outside, and I see him, and I see the man lying on the floor, white, completely white, and he whispered to me, let's say, in Hebrew it was, Uri, but Uri, what will happen with me? So I tell him, X, don't be afraid. I'm going to bring you to the hospital in London. So I asked the doctor, excuse me, what kind of doctor are you? Because it looks to me that it's not like nothing. I say, I'm a dentist. Okay. So normally El Al is full of doctors, not dentists, but okay. So I took the decision not to come back to Tel Aviv, but to land at the airport. But then we have another problem. I have two marshals. Man was killed. A few months earlier, a pilot was killed on the airplane in Switzerland from people from the ground firing on the airplane and killing him. The air marshal jumped from the airplane 3-meter height and ran after one of them and killed him. And the other one ran away and was caught by the local police. So Mordechai, the name of the man, was sentenced for few years, 3 years in prison because he killed a person. And the other one was released after 3 months. They hijacked a Swiss airplane and say, we don't give you back the airplane if you don't release X. And this is what happened. And this happened with some other companies, European, like British Airways, French Airways, that they actually exchange terrorists in order to get the airplane back. 2 countries didn't do it. Not Israel under Golda at this time, Golda Meir, and not the American. They never agreed to change anything with the guerrilla people. But after it was changed by Rabin and then more by Bibi Netanyahu to this exchange. And the exchange is very bad because, of course, the French people is going to kill again people, but you can't catch them. Okay, now the problem was that I have 2 persons. What if I will land with them? The English people are going to take them, and again to blame them for killing a person. Luckily, very luckily, I heard an Al aeroplane on the ground in London who wants to ask to start his engines in order to make a takeoff to Tel Aviv. And I knew this captain there. Later on, he was killed in the 93 war, Yom Kippur war. So I called him immediately and said, okay, switch to frequency of the company, where each one had his own frequency. And I tell him in Hebrew, look, this and this and this happened. We are going now to land in London. The balagan, if you know what's the word of it, the mishmash is going to be enormous. Now, I will open a secret door, which was at the bottom of the airplane, in order that if at the last minute something happened in the cockpit, no, normally, so a mechanic can climb from there and go up without bringing all the stairs and all this procedure. And from there to the ground, it was maybe half a meter to jump, maybe a meter to jump. You open yours, I open mine. They will run from my airplane to yours. And by this, they will disappear. By this time, I immediately told the station manager in London, again in Hebrew, this and this happened, go to the aeroplane, the stair is still there, they just ask permission and bring tickets for these people. And this was done. With all this balagaj that happened there, because they are on the ground, they knew already that there was hijacking of 3 airplanes around. I was the only one who knew nothing. Nobody told me, only come back, come back, come back. So while you were texting this to Air Marshal, went to the other airplane, and then I thought I'm the captain, and in the ship, the captain, he's the captain of his ship, yes. So I'm a captain. So after we took off, the man who was shot, who came to the hospital, then they told me with 5 minutes of life, because one of the big veins was hit by a bullet, and all the bleeding was inside. That is why there was no blood outside, and he was white, because the blood was going out. So he had, that's what they told me, 5 minutes before they operate and they connect it, and that's it, yes. After a week, he left the hospital and flew back to Tel Aviv. So now I want to go out of the airplane, and now I'm watching, the door is open, they are taking the man who is injured, and then I see on the chairs 2 Englishmen with pistols, officers are coming up, say, okay, open the door, we want to go out to the airplane to check. I said, no, it's my airplane, I'm going to Tel Aviv now. So now they're taking a gun, a pistol. They point to me and they say, move. You are on Great Britain soil. When did you hear a slogan like this? You are on a Great Britain soil, move. So what can I do? I moved. I went down, I took my epaulette off, and then one of the air fighter there, yes, I forgot the English word for this, came to me and says, and this is a real story. Did you, what happened? So no, what happened? In an Al aeroplane, the captain was killed and the officer was injured. So I asked him, half smiling probably, so who landed? So he says, oh, the air hostess. And it's not a joke. There was a movie later on by the American who took the idea and they showed that all the people are ill out of bad eating or something like this, and the crew as well, and the air hostess landed the airplane. And they asked permission for me to took this incident and to do from this a movie like this. Okay. But then when they took us to investigation, and I told the crew, don't say anything about these 2 boys, because they probably know Hebrew, and they are beyond some kind of windows that you won't see them, and they are listening. And when they ask you, where is the air marshal? You say, you don't know. And when they ask you, who killed them? You say, we don't know. So, but I remember that my brother, who was a consul at this time in the United States, is waiting for me. And on the way, in the car, the radio is open, and I hear from the BBC this story. An airplane landed, the captain was killed, air first officer hardly wounded, and BBC. And I think, wow, la, la, my brother now is going to hear this news. He think that I was killed. So when we go to the interrogation room, so that's the first thing, let me speak in the United States. I told them why. They agree, and I called the LAL, find him, he's waiting for me now at the airport, and they found him and told him it's okay. Now, after 2 hours of interrogation, they stopped the other airplane. They were not stupid from takeoff. They went to check all the tickets. Each one of them was kosher. Everything was, and they know that somebody shot down. They searched the airplane for some kind of ammunition, their ammunition. They didn't find it. I think that partly they were playing. I can't think of it that they didn't know everything. Now, after a few days, the airplane from Kuwait, BOEC, was hijacked with a toothbrush by Arab and with some kind of a cloth inside. And he said that it's a knife and it's open and say, you fly now to Zarqa, the same place where all the airplane was hijacked. And he went there. And then Leila Khaled was released by the British for the aeroplane. And since then, she became well known in the world as a freedom fighter, and she were invited for many, many places to give lectures about the PLO and about freedom pilot. Now, after 9/11, the pilots all around the world were so confused, and especially the Americans, because there they were not allowed to close the door, because the rights of the people was to see what is done in the cockpit. That was the law. They didn't know what to do, and they came to Israel, and I gave them a lecture, but I don't know what to do. But there is only one thing. If you think that you're not going to, you and your crew hijacked, you will find a way.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to tell you and all the audience a secret, that the airplanes in 9/11 could have been saved by the crew. But the American never thought that the crew has to do anything. For this, you need a police. That was the law. In the airplane, you have all along the aisle bottles of CO2 to fight against fire. This, if you spray to the eye, you are actually blinded. Now, somebody should take a bottle like this, that's all, and go to this man or man and spray, that's all. And there was not a pistol, just a Japanese knife. But they never thought about this. And when I asked them, later on, about 5 or 6 years ago, I was invited by Obama was still in charge, and this time by his deputy of Justice Minister or
Justice. Yeah.
Oh, and I stayed with them for about a week, and I raised this point, and he said to me, "But this is not the crew doesn't have to do it. Only the police." Okay. So this is the way. Why not? Now, back to me.
Uri, just before, I want to give people the opportunity to ask you some questions. This is a good time to take a pause?
Okay.
Okay, so we'll open up for questions. Now I see Brian's got his hand up.
Only one thing before you ask a question, because there is some kind of a joke inside. When we go to the hotel after 2 hours, we get a fax from our from Golda Meir, from the Prime Minister. But this is written in English, and nobody can understand what is written there. We look at this, there is a piece of paper, Golda Meir is signed for it, and then says maybe it's written in English, but in Hebrew. Okay, but not from right to left, but from the left to right. So now we try to read this and this and this to the big Iborim and the captain, so on and so forth, in English, letters from left to right. And then I was trying to find out, fax was very new. They thought that in Hebrew, you can't send a fax, only in English letters.
Okay. All right. Now I've got Brian waiting. Just before we get to you, Brian, Michael's been itching to ask one question. So Michael, you ask your question. then we'll go to Brian, and if anybody else has any questions, now's the time to indicate. Michael?
Yeah, I think Adrian wanted to ask a question, but I'll just ask one question because I think it's right that our audience participates. But Uri, in Israel's long fight with Arab terrorists, there's been a long history of captured terrorists being released in exchange for Arab prisoners in Israeli jails. Uri, in hindsight, would it have been better if Leila Khaled would not have made it out alive? Because as we can see now, she's the poster child of the left. I know it's a controversial question.
No, I will answer. First, I forgot to tell you that when we came to London, the security man there was the first one to enter the aeroplane, even before the police took Leila Khaled from the aeroplane in all this balagan, and he wanted to kill Leila Khaled. She was still fainted on the ground. And I said, I'm saying now again, no man, no fainted man, or incapacitated man is going to be killed in my aeroplane. And I still think this. This is two different things. She was fainted, she is not killed. If this was a war, a fight, this was after the fight. That was like prisoners. You don't kill prisoners. You kill them during the war. I don't know if Leila Khaled knows that she has to thank me for keeping her alive. Really.
Okay.
Well, this is true.
Okay.
Generally, I am against, what, say again?
No, I can hear, we can see there's a big philosophical question.
Okay.
Uri, let me ask.
No, but I want to answer to the second part of the question.
Okay.
In order to exchange actually passengers or exchange of soldiers for I don't know, any kind of exchange, I'm against it, because if you exchange, as we know that for one we change 1,002 people, and now 60% of them return to Hamas, and they were fighting. So this is very stupid. And the American idea not to do it, always, never, is they are not now trying to hijack American airplanes or anything else, because they know that they will let them die. They are not going to do anything.
Okay. Let's take a question from Brian, and then I think we've got Dennis and Michael. Is there Adrian that wants to ask a question?
There's Alec who also wants to ask a question.
Okay.
Okay, Brian, you go first.
Thanks, Alan. Uri, I'll be quick, and if I've missed something in what you explained already, I'm sorry, but I couldn't understand. I do understand they get on plastic explosives which will not be picked up by a metal detector, but how did they manage to sneak grenades on?
Yes.
This bothered me for many, many years, until I read the book of Leila Khaled by, how you call it, a shadow writer. And there she said, I don't know if it's correct or not, but this is what she is saying, that she had a handbag made up of plastic, not plastic, but rope, let's say. So when she was called for inspection, the pistol, the hand grenade, she put there, and she put it on the shelf, and said, okay. So the searcher, and everything was there. For years I was thinking, where could she hide them? How, where, maybe in her bra, I don't know how. Now I know. And she said something else, that because we didn't open the door, they got confused. Because until now, always the door was open. And another secret, I'm the only one in the world who did it. There was many hijacking after my case, because the captains never fought it. Many airplanes, especially European one, and 9/11 of course, which could have been prevented. Now the law in America now is changed, the law of IATA is changed, that the crew has to take part. The crew is part of, if there is a fight against air hijacking, they are a part of it. I don't know if the crew agree or not, but Israeli, everybody was in the army. It's another case.
Yes.
Girls and men were in the army, so they know how to.
Yes.
And have the fire bottles.
Sure. Dennis, ask your question and then we go to Alec.
Yes, hi. Thank you for this. Now, I'm fortunate enough to know a few of the marshals who are young men, or were young men, trained in the army. And now they're also operating on all the cruise ships that operate, as far as I know, certainly in Europe, here in Australia as well, probably in the United States. How are they chosen now?
Where, in Israel?
Yeah, I know the boys, I said the boys that I do know, were in combat units, not traumatic ones, just basic.
Yeah, in Israel, all of them are officers which are taken from combat unit. You are right. This is in Israel, not in other places, only in Israel. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Alec, do you have a question? Please unmute yourself and ask your question. Yes, anybody? No? Okay, look, we are coming up.
Alec, hello.
Oh, he's there. Okay.
I'm never sure if I'm muted or unmuted.
Okay.
What I wanted to know, because I've traveled in quite a few parts of the world, and whenever I travel El Al, the pre-flight inspection, the security is amazing. Did they not have an investigation after this episode with how come these people were allowed to come on with, I heard what he said about the grenades, but with guns? These fellows came on with a gun, a pistol. How come they never found these things? Did they not have an investigation in how they got away with it?
First of all, this was not from Tel Aviv, it was from Amsterdam. So this is Amsterdam police, or not El Al security. This is Amsterdam. Amsterdam has their own law, and that's how they did it. Second, at this time it was only 1 year after the Pan American CWA was hijacked to Lebanon and from there to Cairo and was exploded there. And nobody knew actually how to deal with this, what to do, what to check, how to check. That's a long story. I'm telling you, it's only 1 year until all this procedure started. Now, El Al, even today, they don't do like in America, because if you flew there, you see that you go through checks, but you don't see it actually. Everything is unseen. There is many covered people there. All of them are officers who are looking for some kind of nervousness, some kind of, they know how to read the people, but nobody actually is. And until now, since my case, there was not attempt on El Al aeroplane again. There was 7 attempts before this, but after this, after 6th of September, 1970, there was about 10 hijacking. I told you 2,862 people were killed or injured on these cases during from 70 to 80. I don't have numbers after 80. And
yeah,
because nobody is fighting. No, what can I tell you? That's it.
Yeah,
I was only stupid. What can I tell you? No.
Okay, we're coming up to time. We've got 2 questions left. Please make them very quick. So there's Terry and then Larry. So please make them very short, because we don't like to go over time. Terry, fire away.
Yes, I was just wondering what the status is of air marshals, not just from Israel, but internationally. It just appalls me to hear the story that one of them actually did his job and killed a hijacker and ends up being a criminal. I mean, is there any international protocol?
Look, I didn't tell you everything, But I was charged by TWA to pay them $150 million because I took off the two people who hijacked their airplane and blown them. That was, and the British authorities, excuse me, I don't know how to say the law in English, is to be in a help for killing somebody, how to say?
An accomplice. An accomplice.
An accomplice.
So you ask the question, the law, that's the law of the other state. And now, I didn't tell you before this, that after my case, because when there is another story, now I'm in 2/3, there is another story. The other story is what happened later this, because all the law of Israel was changed completely, as far as aviation is concerned, and few European countries were affected by this. And now, after many, many, many years, after 9/11, even the American, but this took 40 years. And when after the hijacking, I was running away in all English-speaking association, pilot association, says, don't involve us in our business. They are not never going to do any harm to us. Even the British and even and the English and the French and the American. So I guess this answers your question.
One last question from Larry. Please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Am I unmuted?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Uri, just quickly, after the attempted hijacking, did El Al change any of its protocols as far as security is concerned at that point in time?
All the law of Israel, look, they wanted to fire me, the Shabak, before I disobeyed them. And then I called the government and says, if you don't hear my side, and they were real of this, I'm going to tell all the world that the big hero in the world now, what you did to him. So there was a committee of two generals, two, Dayan and Igal Alon, and the internal minister, to hear my story, and then they said that I was right, and all the law, all the behaviors in Israel was changed. As far as is concerned.
Yeah.
They're all concerned.
Okay, well, I think we'll have to leave it there. Now, I actually see there's a few people entering the waiting room, and I suspect that there are some people that haven't adjusted the time for daylight saving. So if that applies to you, we're actually just wrapping up at the moment, but this is being recorded, so you'll be able to catch it up at a later point. Uri, it's an amazing story. I want to thank you for sharing it with us. It just raises so many questions. We could talk for another hour or two, I'm sure. But
I told you beforehand.
you warned me, I know. But thank you so much for joining us. It's just been wonderful, and we wish you all the best. David, I'll just hand back to you for the final few comments before we leave.
Okay, look, thank you so much, Alan, for hosting, and Uri for the most remarkable story, very intense. Great event again. Now, I just want to wrap up as usual and let everyone know that we want everyone who's here to support HAA. If you're not yet following us on Facebook, go to the page and like and follow it. If you want to receive notifications for our events, just send an email to office@jewishassociation.org.au. If you're not yet a member, go to the website jewishassociation.org.au. Next week, we'll be talking a bit about New Zealand, and we have Juliet Moses, who's an incredible spokesman for the New Zealand Jewish community. With that aside, she's done a video that went viral on what it's like to be a Zionist in New Zealand, and we'll circulate that during the week. And she has a famous line in it that sometimes to be a Zionist is less popular than if she would say that she was an ISIS supporting prostitute. Anyway, we'll be talking about the New Zealand election, the implications for the Jewish community and for Israel policy. And of course, New Zealand has a bit of a mixed history. So that's it, Alan. Thank you again, and look forward to seeing everyone next week.
Thanks, David. Uri, Toda Rabah again, thank you so much. It was a fascinating story, and we will look forward to seeing everybody again next week. So for now, it's good evening to you all.